Salve, the Roman Empire and its emperors. Rome's most famous emperors are often remembered and are as famous as they are for their efforts to hold the empire together during times of great difficulty. Emperors such as Trajan, Diocletian, Caesar, and Aurelian. However, there is one lesser-known Roman emperor who also used his great military prowess to hold the empire together. He was one of the last Roman emperors, and unfortunately, unlike the others, he wasn't able to save the empire, and a few years after his reign, the Western Roman Empire collapsed. Emperor Majorian. Today we will shine some light on this relatively unknown and seriously underrated emperor. In fact, I am willing to argue that he was the greatest emperor in all of Roman history. So without further ado, let's begin. He was born in November of 420 CE in the Roman region of Gaul, not Gaul, Gaul. His full name was Flavius Lulius Valerius Majorianus. He was born during a turbulent time. The Roman Empire was falling apart. A couple decades earlier, the empire was stable but was beginning to be plagued by corruption, economic instability, and cultural decadence, especially among the aristocratic elites. To the north of the Balkans lies the westernmost points of the Eurasian steppe, a vast open flat region of mostly grassland. From the far east of the Eurasian steppe, a new threat emerged: the Huns. The Huns were a group of Oghuric Turkic tribes united under a single banner, who devoured everything in their path. They migrated into Eastern Europe, reaching the borders of the empire. From here they launched massive raids and occasional invasions into the empire. Their horse bowmen could easily destroy entire Roman legions. Their migration also displaced many Germanic tribes north of the empire, forcing them to flee west from the Huns. There were many different specific Germanic tribal groups, and many of them began to migrate into the empire, into the western portion of the empire, for protection or sometimes to found their own kingdoms within the empire. Essentially, you had a bunch of illegal immigrants coming into the empire, and we all know the negative effects that can have on society. I'm kidding. From here, the empire began to buckle under the pressure as the empire split into a western and eastern half. From there, the Germanic tribes migrated into the empire and further strained the west. The Germanic tribes did this over the course of decades, all whilst the Huns continued to launch raids into both halves of the empire. It was during these turbulent events that Majorian was born. We don't know much about his early life other than that he joined the Roman military at a young age and quickly rose through the ranks thanks to his great military genius. He belonged to the military aristocracy of the Roman Empire. His grandfather of the same name reached the rank of Magister Militum under Emperor Theodosius I. By the time he became emperor in 457 CE, the empire was basically entirely falling apart. At least the western half. The east was largely spared the fate of the west, however the eastern portion still suffered raids from the Huns. In the Western Roman Empire, through a complex series of events that I'm not even going to try to summarize, eventually he found himself launching a coup of the government and taking over as the new emperor. The great historian Edward Gibbon once said, "Majorian presents the welcome discovery of a great and heroic character, such as sometimes arise in a degenerate age to vindicate the honor of the human species." It's said that one of his greatest qualities was that he simply never gave up. Even when losing many battles and facing many opponents all at once, it was said that he had a ruthless determination to reach his goals that was unlike any other man in Rome, according to one senator. It's clear that he had a great ambition to restore what was lost from Rome, at least in the western portion. He was the one strong man that arose from the hard times. The saying, "hard times create strong men," couldn't be more true. It's said that he would always fight alongside his troops, and if he ever saw a soldier that was wounded or injured on the battlefield, he would always make sure that they'd get medical care and could survive if possible. He was powerful but humble and stoic. He suffered many great losses during his lifetime, and yet he was able to pull through. That is an example of a strong man. His biggest accomplishment by far would have been his ability to nearly entirely restore the Western Roman Empire to its former glory prior to the Germanic incursions. By far his greatest accomplishments were his military campaigns against the Visigoths and other Germanic states and kingdoms that had arisen from the former Western Roman Empire's territory. He led his legions in the campaigns and with the great use of genius military strategies was able to conquer much of what had formerly been lost and return the Germanic kingdoms to their vassal client state status. Well, I mean, most of the Germanic kingdoms at least. However, all throughout this, the Western Roman Empire was being attacked from all sides by Germanic tribes, and so Majorian was almost always constantly having to go back and forth between different regions to hold back different tribes. On top of this, he also had to constantly deal with local corruption and corruption within his own military system among his generals. He also had to keep wary of all the potential assassination plots against him at all times. Throughout all of this, I personally think that his biggest accomplishment was being able to flip and keep his mental sanity in check. Oh my god. Seriously. Oh yeah, we're gonna go capture this strategically important Visigothic city, but oh no, the Burgundians have just begun invading on a gold-rich region, so we gotta go back quickly and defend against that. But oh crap, the Senate isn't sending enough troops quickly enough because of corruption, and so now the economy is going bad because we're losing the gold and we don't have enough troops and the Burgundians and Visigoths are closing in, and oh, that other Germanic tribe is now invading in the north. Whoa, we just dodged an assassination attempt, but I don't have time to charge them because a revolt over high taxes from the lack of gold just broke out in South Italy. And what's that? Rome just got sacked by the Vandals, and now the Visigoths are invading Italy. Oh, and there's a food shortage in Gallia, but the other Germanic tribes alongside the Saxons are sacking this strategically important region, so we gotta go back, but we don't have enough money to pay enough troops. And whoa, I just dodged another assassination attempt. Oh, but what's that? The other Germanic tribes in the food shortage. Like, give this man a break! Holy shit. So how would I grade Emperor Majorian? In my personal opinion, he was good, and gets a solid 9 out of 10. He was truly a good person who did everything he could to save Rome, from improving military strategies and experimenting with new ones, to reforming the gold standard and taxation system for the empire's economy, to even purging the Senate of corrupt senators. This man gave everything, and he was able to restore and bring back a lot of what had been formerly lost. The only reason he doesn't get a 10 out of 10 is because most of his achievements were undone shortly after his reign. And in fact, just a few years later in 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire would fall permanently. Western Europe after the fall of the empire was forever changed. Thousands of people fled to the countryside away from the cities to escape the conflict. There, they became subservient for protection by local wealthy Roman aristocrats, which gave rise to feudalism. Western Europe entered what some historians call the Dark Ages. Overall, in the long term, living standards decreased, population decreased, literacy rates fell dramatically, and records became poor. Art became more simple and basic. Crime rates for the next nearly 1,000 years would remain high as banditry became common. Disease and famine became more common. Overall life expectancy shortened, communication and spread of information and knowledge over long distances disappeared, as small rural villages became isolated from one another. Many Roman inventions disappeared as well, such as aqueducts and indoor plumbing disappeared, and in many areas forests and vegetation and wildlife began to grow back, as grand Roman architecture and buildings began to rot. Western Europe became an eerily dangerous and empty place. These people had survived the collapse of civilization, and during this dark age the Christian kingdoms that arose competed with one another, and over time innovated, and eventually the Dark Ages would transition into the medieval era. Majorian was the last man to try his full effort to save a dying world. And on that note, thanks for watching.